Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Combs, and what I want to do today is give you some help with this APA style references page assignment. So we're in week 5, and I'm going to click on the assignment. And the assignment tells me to first review the APA documentation PowerPoint presentation and accompanying resources from week 3, step 3, paying close attention to slides 6 through 9. And you can also, if you would like, complete an online workshop dealing with APA style from HCTC libraries. So if you would like to do that, you can click here and that will take you to that workshop. So the actual assignment, we'll review the APA documentation resources in just a moment, but the actual assignment gives you 10 sources in a Word document and asks you to correctly format those 10 sources on a references page. Now, the references page, is, if you remember, is an important part of any essay because it's a place where all of the sources that you use throughout the essay are listed in alphabetical order, and all the information that a reader needs to look those sources up to review them for his or herself should be found on that reference page. So let's take a look at this assignment. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this references page assignment. I'm going to do that by clicking the 3 dots here, and I'm going to download the original file. So it downloads, and on my computer, it puts it down here in the corner. And you can enable editing or not. But here is the list of resources. So I have a book, I have a chapter from a book, I have an ebook, I have a magazine article with no PDF available. That will mean something to you if you've looked at the APA PowerPoint that features Charlie Brown. An academic journal with no PDF, a page from a website, and a document from a web page, and a YouTube video. So what we're going to do is we're going to put all of these into a reference page and format them correctly. So I'm going to help you out with a couple of them just to get you started. So what I've also done is I've pulled up a blank Word document, and this I've changed my font to Times New Roman to 12-point font. I've made it double space. I haven't changed the margins. I forgot to check those. So I'm going to look at layout and margins, and it should be 1 inch all around, and so the margins are 1 inch. So I think I've got my page formatted using APA style. I'm ready to start entering the reference entries. So I'm going to go back, and there's a lot of jumping around in this video, but what you might do is print off some things. You might print off the APA PowerPoint so that you have it in hand. You might print off the resources so you have those in hand as well. So I'm going to get out of this assignment. This is where you will, here you will upload your document when you turn in the assignment. But for now, I'm going to go back to week 3, step 3, to look at the APA documentation PowerPoint. So I'm going to click on this information. Now, you've already reviewed this a couple weeks ago. But here I'm going to download the APA documentation PowerPoint. You could look at it here right within the Blackboard shell. However, sometimes, this actually looks pretty good, but sometimes the formatting can be off. So see here that this is a little off because of the the way that it has to be displayed inside of Blackboard. So while you can pretty much use this, what I like to do is just download. And again, it puts it in the corner, and I open it up, and I have the entire PowerPoint presentation here. You can enable editing if you want or not. So I'm going to keep this not in presentation form because I need to be moving from my resource to my assignment to my answer reference page. So the first thing that I noticed that there should be on the reference page the word references centered at the top, and there should be a page number. So I've not done that yet for my document, so I'm going to put the page number in now. So I think what you can do is go to Insert, and you have header and footer over here, but the third choice under the header, or the third choice in the header footer little block here is page number. So I want the page number at the top of the page, and I want it over at the right. So there you go. Now that's the page number. So I'm going to click back into the document. I'm going to hit center. I'm going to hit bold, and I'm going to type references. And then I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to unbold, and I'm going to go back to left justified or left aligned. Now, I want to look at my assignment. So the first assignment I have, or the first, not assignment, excuse me, the first entry that I have is a book called Rhinoceros Success: The Secret to Charging Full Speed Toward Every Opportunity. So I need to know how to, or I need to review how to list a book on the references page. So I'm going to go to my PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to go to my references. The first one there is a book. And so this tells me that what I'll need is the author's last name, the author's first initial, the author's middle initial, if the author has one, the publication year, the title of the book, the editor's last name, and the editor's first initial. And then I need to indicate that it is the editor that I'm referring to there, and the publisher name, and then something called the DOI. Now, if you look on the previous slide, you'll notice that there's a description of what the DOI is. So the DOI is a digital object identifier. It's a alphanumeric string that shows you where you can find something online. So if you're not using an online resource, or if you're using a resource that is also in print, you may not need the DOI. So the DOI is not always used. It's mainly, or it's always used for electronic sources, but not so much for books that you might physically hold, or magazines that you are physically holding. So if your book is an ebook, then you will use the DOI. If it's not an ebook, then you will not. So I'm going to go back to book. So the first thing I need is the author's last name, the author's first initial, and then I need the publication year in parentheses. And I notice everything in red is something that will change based on your book. Everything in black is something that will always say the same. So you'll always put the year in parentheses. You'll always put periods and commas where they are. And you'll always indicate the editor if the book has an editor. Now, if the book does not have an editor, then you don't list it. And in fact, if something is missing, you just do not list that particular piece of information. You move on to the next piece of information. The only thing that is sort of weird that way is that if you do not have an author, usually we do not start a reference entry with the publication year. So what you'll do is you'll put the publication year after the first piece of information that you have. Okay? So if you don't have an author, don't put the year first, put the year after whatever piece of information that you have. So for example, in the case of a book, you would put the year after the title of the book. All right, so let's look at our source. So if I look at the source, what I've given you is the cover and the publication page of the book. Now this page is usually found right inside of the book. It's the first or second page, and it's actually I said publication page, but usually known as the copyright page because it has the copyright date on it. So Scott Alexander is the author of this book. There is a foreword by Dave Ramsey. Some people might interpret Dave Ramsey as the editor, or maybe saying that Dave Ramsey is an author as well, but he is not. There's just a foreword, which is a piece of writing that introduces the book, sort of, and introduces Scott Alexander. So Dave Ramsey wrote that foreword, but he is not the author of the book. Scott Alexander is. The title of the book is Rhinoceros Success. It was published in 1980, and it was published by Lampo Licensing, LLC. Or I guess that's the foreword, was copyrighted by that institution. It was actually, I'm sorry, published by Lampo Press. So that's all we need. We have all the information we need right here to cite this book. So I'm going to go to my references page. I need to cite or list the author's last name first and first initial. So Alexander, comma, S, period. After that, I'm going to put a space, put a parentheses, 1980, and after that, put a period. Now I'm going to type the title of the book. And the title of the book is Rhinoceros Success. Now, you do not need, let me go back here for a minute. You do not need to put this little tag here, the secret to charging full speed toward every opportunity. You can if you would like, but you do not need to do that. Rhinoceros Success is the title of the book. Also, what you'll notice is that in the title of the example, the only word that is capitalized is the first word. And if there were proper nouns, you would also capitalize those. So in the title of a book, only proper nouns and the first word of the title and subtitle are capitalized. And this is the same for books, book chapters, articles, web pages and web documents, and websites. The only time you capitalize all important words of a title is when it's the title of a journal and or magazine. So journals and magazines, those get all title or all important words capitalized. All other titles and names are only the first word and proper nouns. So this is sometimes called title case. So title case would be for journal and magazines. Title case is where all important words are capitalized. Or sentence case. And sentence case, like a sentence, is where only the first word and proper nouns are capitalized. Not sure why this persists. There is an article on the APA website that talks about why this was done to begin with. I'm not sure why it has persisted, but it does, and we must follow it if we're going to follow APA. So I'm only going to capitalize the first word of this title in my entry. So notice that the title is in italics. So I'm going to either click I up here or do Control I to make my font italicized, and then I'll click Control I, or I'll hit Control I, or I'll click up here to remove um, italics when I'm ready to move on. And I always spell rhinoceros wrong, but I'm glad that I have spell check. So rhinoceros, success. And then I'm going to hit Control I to remove the italics, and I'm going to put a period, comma, or not comma, sorry, period space. And then I'm going to say that this is Lampo Press. Period. This was not an ebook, so I don't have to put the DOI, and I've now cited this book correctly. Now, let's look at another one. Now, I do not want to necessarily do all of these with you, but I think if we look at a couple more, it will help us. So let me go back to the references page. So I'm going to skip over a book chapter. You can look at book chapter. It works similarly to a book, only this time you have editors, and you also have a chapter title that you need to put in there. I'm going to also skip over ebook. It's pretty much like a book. The only thing that you need to do is put in the DOI or the persistent link. So here is a permalink for the book that you will include at the end. But I do want to take a look at this magazine article. So let's look at this magazine article. So what I've given you is I've given you the first page of the magazine article, and I've also given you the information you will find if you access this magazine through HCTC library databases. I think this is the information you'll find maybe through EBSCO. So the reason why I present both of these is because I find the magazine first page to be a little bit difficult to understand or to work through. For example, I'm not sure who the authors are by looking at the magazine page. Maybe Lisa Rinna is the author. Maybe Lisa Rinna is the person in this picture, and I happen to know that it is the person in this picture. Is the author The Ultimate Guide to Sending Your Kids to College, 2013, or is the title Moving Them Out Never Gets Easier? So this is very confusing. So what I like to do is I like to use the information from the entry in the database. So I know that from looking at the database information that the title is The Ultimate Guide to Sending Your Kids to College. I know that the authors Lisa Rinna is not included in the list of authors, but all of these authors are. The source is People Magazine. It comes from volume 92, issue 5, pages 69 through 74. And this was published in 7/29/2019. So I have all the information I need there on the database or in the database entry. So make sure you use that as well, even if you can see the magazine and, see a picture of the magazine. All right, so let's look at this one. So let's go to, this is a magazine article, and I can see the magazine pages. When I can see the magazine pages, it's not important for me to list a DOI or a permanent link because this is also a physical magazine as well. If you go down to here where I see a magazine with no PDF available, here I cannot see the actual pages of the magazine. So I need to list the permanent link as well to let my reader know that this is something that I found online that the reader may or may not be able to find in person. Um, but here, since I had a PDF listed of the front page, I'm just gonna cite this like a regular magazine article. And if you have questions about this, you can ask me. All right, so I'm gonna go to my PowerPoint presentation and I'm gonna look for a magazine article. So for a magazine article, it says that I need to list the author's last name, the author's first initial, the author's middle initial, the publication year, publication month, and day, title of the article, the title of the magazine. So notice that the title of the article is in sentence case, the title of the magazine is in title case, the volume number, the issue number in parentheses, comma, the page numbers. And then I can put the DOI or persistent link if I need to, but I don't have to in this case. Okay. Now, you'll also notice that we have several different authors, and someplace in this, I thought I had some information about the author. I guess I do not. But what I want to tell you is that notice how here this book has the book chapter has two authors. So you're just going to list these with commas, and between the last two authors, you're going to put an and symbol. Now, I think what you do in the reference page is if you have up to 20 authors, you list all authors. If you have more than 20, you list the first several authors, then dot, 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 and then list the last author's name. Now, inside of in-text, when you're using in-text citations, you're going to put the first author if you have more than two, going to put the first author and then use et al. Um, but on the reference page for up to 20 authors, you're going to just use all of the authors' names. You don't use et al. On the reference page. Okay. So I'm going to go back to magazine article. So here's here's the magazine article. Hopefully I can remember the order all of this goes into. Because I don't. Let me just tell you that I don't know this by memory either. In fact, when I do professional things, when I write things for other English professors, I don't use APA. I use something called MLA, but I haven't memorized MLA either. You don't memorize a documentation style unless you use it so often that you sort of can't help but memorize some things. Most of the time, I have to pull out my manual or pull out this PowerPoint, especially for APA. So don't think this is anything that you have to memorize. You are always allowed to have your resources with you as you're citing your sources. So let's go to the reference page. Okay, so my authors are, I'm terrible with pronouncing names, APATOFF, Apatoff, A, period, and then I'm going to put a comma, Cho, comma, D, period, and then put a comma, COYNE, coin, comma, K, period, and then I'm going to put a comma, Kratophil, comma, C, period, comma, and then McNeil is the last one, so I'm going to put an and symbol. Then I'm going to say space McNeil, comma, L, period. Now, in parentheses, I'm going to put 2019 and comma, and then I'm going to say July 29th. So even though, and I'm going to put a period, parentheses and a period. So let me go back to my source. Even though that's not my source. Sorry. Let's see. Here we go. Even though the date is given to us sort of numerically, in APA style, you always write out the name of the month and do not use abbreviations. Write out the full name of the month. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back. So now the title of this article is The Ultimate Guide to Sending Your Kids to College. So I'm going to say space and I'm going to say The Ultimate. Remember, I'm using sentence case in this part. The Ultimate Guide to Sending Your Kids to College. Now there is some stylization here in the, if I go back, notice there's some stylization. The Ultimate Guide to ... The Ultimate Guide to ... Sending your kids to college. You can include that if you want. The Ultimate Guide ... To sending your kids to college. You can include that if you want. That doesn't matter. But then I'm going to put a period, and then this comes from People. But remember, People is italicized, and it's a magazine title. So if I had two words in it, I would capitalize both of those. So People, and then I'm going to say comma, and then I'm going to put the volume number in italics, but remove the italics to put parentheses and the issue number. And there's no space between the volume number and issue number. And then I'm going to put parentheses, or I'm sorry, not parentheses, but a comma, and then I'm going to put the page numbers, 69 through 74. Now, the only other thing that I need to do to make this correct is I need to use hanging indentation. So I'm going to go to the second line of this entry. I'm going to hit Control, and I'm going to hit Tab. Now, this works for an online for Word that is on my desktop. It's a little bit different for if you're using Word online. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but if you're having trouble getting the hanging indentation, just let me know, and we'll get on Blackboard Collaborate or something, and talk about it, and figure it out that way for online Word. Because I know some of you are using Word Online that you get through your student self-serve or through your student account, and that's excellent. You can also download that onto your computer. That's what I've done. I've downloaded it onto my computer so I can use the desktop version of Word. Still free. All right, there you go. That's the magazine. That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you work on the other 8. So there were 10 resources. We've done 2. I'm going to let you work on the other 8. Remember that after you get all your resources listed, you need to move them around so that they are in alphabetical order, because the reference page should always be in alphabetical order, and students seem to forget that sometimes. So yes, list them all out, list all your references, but then right before you turn it in, make sure that you have them all in alphabetical order. If you have any questions, just let me know, and I hope that you found this to be helpful, and I will see you in the next video.